controls that we have found that may be weak is the what I call the cans that are used to fuel like lawnmowers, our weed eaters, and all of that. Okay, we still have the card here, so we know when an employee drew the fuel, we know the amount of it drew the fuel, but tying it back to a specific fuel can is what was shown as a weakness in the system. And so what we're now requiring is all of our cans to be numbered, and those cans are tied back to a specific crew within the city's operation. We've also have diesel that often is placed in a tank that is in either one of our dump trucks or one of our trucks that is now used to fuel like generators and all of that. And what we are now doing is placing a fuel dispensing unit on the back of those trucks that will tap the tank so that you know very specifically when I'm fueling the generators here at City Hall or out there and how much fuel was placed in each one of the generators. So we did find those were some of the weaknesses in the system. Is although we know what employee pulled fuel, we know when they did it, is that is tying some of those cans back to a very specific work crew.
Does someone check to make sure that after these figures and statistics come in, that the gasoline being dispensed is appropriate and matches what you would figure the mileage, the gallons per mileage should be?
Well, that was a question that came up related to one vehicle very specifically. And initially, when you would go to the EPA, kind of the estimates of fuel mileage, it appeared that that vehicle may have not accounted for all of its fuel. But when we looked at its use in comparison with other same vehicles, same model periods, that vehicle seemed to not be using any more fuel than the vehicles that were of the same type that we have in our current fleet. And so yes, occasionally you'll go up and you'll see an anomaly like that, and you will say, okay, now let's compare it with other vehicles in the fleet to see if they are getting similar or more or less. And that's kind of one of the things that we have done is try to look at that. Now, do we do that all the time? Only when there's reason to believe that there may not be fuel being entered correctly. Now, the fuel system, we're actually looking at the fuel system itself because one of the things that we're looking at is what we call operator error. And sometimes when an operator gets up and they enter, they do not always enter the correct mileage in the vehicle. And so but usually that corrects itself with the next time or something like that. The fuel system, and again, we are in an early item of electronics on this particular system, may not be being fully utilized, where it would only allow a small amount of fuel to be dispensed. Again, so we're looking at how do you put that back into effect so that an individual that would then have to be brought to a supervisory level if they enter the wrong mileage. And then before we could authorize any more fuel distribution. We think that this fuel system, as a matter of fact, there is a provision that will allow that type of control, and the major concern was over on PD side, because at night, we don't always have we don't have a public works person on site during the period when a a mistake may have been made by a patrol officer, and then they've limited the amount of fuel, and now you couldn't put any fuel in the vehicle. And so we're trying to work through those procedures because we believe that's a good safety safeguard on this particular item.
Is there now, or has there been, any other investigative body other than the Port Orange Police Department that has been looking into problems of missing items, such as possibly the Attorney General's office or FDLE?
Well, I know that the state attorney's office, you provide them with information. I'm not familiar with FDLE being in, and I'm not familiar with the Attorney General being into the area. Those are the things that I'm just not aware of. They have not, and as far as I know, that they're allowing the Port Orange Police Department to conduct its review. I know that there was a potential allegation about the police chief, and we did turn that over to FDLE. There was, and the FDLE has looked at that discussion some time ago, just recently, when a citizen said about the public works item that maybe the police chief knew something, and FDLE has been in, and there has been, as far as I know, there's no finding on that one.
I spoke to that lady. I think we're speaking about Ms. Branch. I sent an email once or twice and email correspondence with her. She says that she doesn't want to be more specific with me, Port Orange Area News, until she does more research on it. And but she mentioned to me that Mr. Pike had asked for a better security system at the Public Works facility years ago, and it was turned down by the city because it would be too expensive. Does that ring a bell with you?
Does not ring a bell with me, but we're always evaluating our security systems, and I've asked the finance department to go back and look at our capital budgets to see if there was a request made. But I do recall is when we did put the Medco system in, and that was probably about 10 or so years ago. And the Medco system requires you to change out all your locks, so that wasn't a cheap deal either. And so now putting in security gates and all the other types of things have been more recent types of items that we have been doing. 04, we actually did some changing of our gates at the water treatment plants and at our wastewater treatment plants as a part of a Homeland Security audit that we did. And then also when we constructed the new police department, we put in the new security systems up there. And we are in the process of changing security systems here in this building, and so that we're very much aware of security systems and trying to update all of our security systems. The systems that we're putting in place, for example, here at City Hall, and also the ones that we have placed out at the new police department, actually will record who is in the building, what time you went into the building, what areas you were authorized to be in the building, and so you're not having to you carry an ID card with you, and it allows us a lot more flexibility and so forth. We've also installed a lot more security cameras in the area over the recent years, and we do have security cameras down at our at a part of our warehouse area, but we don't have it all throughout the public works yards. Those are now being installed also throughout the public works yards. But generally speaking, we have increased the amount of security in all of our city facilities, and we've tried to react when our department heads have said, yes, new security systems need to be in place. And I think that, The
thank you.
I'm trying to make sure the camera